Okay, up to Mishlei 1528. I do not believe I have done this pasuk, so I'm excited. Those are getting rarer and rarer. Okay. Lev tzadik yehege la'anos, ufi rashaim yabia ra'os. Quasi rhyming. Yeah.
The heart of the tzaddik.
The heart of a tzaddik. I'm sorry, heart of a tzaddik.
Custom?
You're looking minhag?
Yeah.
So I think minhag is from Nun Hey Gimel, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So okay, yeah. So I would have translated, I would have translated it as utters. This says the BDB says moan, growl, utter, speak, muse. That's the weird thing also is like Yehu l'roton imre fi v'hegion libi, right? So I don't know if that's like a borrowed expression that it means primarily utterance, but like utterances of the mind are thoughts, or if it's the other way around, where like higayon is thinking, and then like since speech is a function of thought, then it has that. Seems like it's more to speak. Although it says, oh, onomatopoeia. Like what's the onomatopoeia? Muse speak, spell a word. All right, like hoge es Hashem be'osioseha. No, that's like one who articulates the name. All right, never mind. Satirize, insult, school, also spell. You use it for inarticulate sounds. Utter, soliloquize. What a word. Meditate, muse. Yeah. So let's go here. The heart of a tzaddik. What word is the most like allows for all those possibilities? But I think I honestly think if you're going to say the heart of a tzaddik utters, so I think you get the pronouncement, but since it's the heart, you also get that it's it could be like a purely mental thing. Yeah.
It seems like
like the mind and everything.
So yeah, here's the thing though, is that in rabbinic or maybe even medieval Hebrew, I think the term evolved. So for example, like you've got that weird phrase of in the Midrash, I think it's in Brachos, Manu es benechem mi higayon, mina higayon, prevent your kids from being engaged in higayon. Okay, and there's machlokes in the meforshim whether it means Greek philosophy or whether it means Tanakh. Okay, right? And like either way, it's like so like and same thing. Higayon is like Sefer Higayon is like the book of law. So I get the sense that like it took on a meaning later. I think Koach Higayon is of that latter usage. So that's why I was trying to go with the biblical stuff. Yeah, Isaac.
I don't know if this captures the like inarticulate definitions like moan or gruntle.
That's
moan,
true.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So that's the weird thing also is like, in rabbinic Hebrew, it does mean to articulate, I think, but then it seems like from here, it's talking about to like, yeah, there's got to be a good English word for that, right? To like
maybe like mutters.
Mutters.
Like,
at an M.
Yeah.
Yeah, mutter though, I feel like
doesn't have an intellectual
no. And I also feel like there's a weird thing where mutter implies a certain volume of speech in terms of like the hearer. And so the heart muttering, yeah. Isaac, what are you say?
Oh, sorry, I didn't have more to say.
Oh, fine. Marin?
I was gonna say communicate. That's the most vague word you could get.
That's true. It's funny. Yeah. Although it's kind of weird. Communicate.
Why don't you want to just slash and do an intellectual one and a intellectual one?
I don't know. I kind of want to capture. Okay, so the heart of a tzaddik. Something about this makes me want to put it in. Maybe you'll see why in the other part. So, just give me one more second. Heart of a tzaddik.
Expresses, maybe?
Expresses is good. Yeah, expresses is good. But now here's the weird part. La'anos.
To answer?
Yeah, to answer, right? Okay, expresses to answer, which is a weird phrase. Okay. Ufi rashaim yabia ra'os.
Love wicked. Espouse ra.
Do you say espouse?
Yeah.
You could say that. There is a more literal word for yabia. It's closer. That's closer. So, I did not consciously recognize until I clicked on the B2B today that it's the shortish is novea, to flow, right? Or to bubble up. Okay. There's no good,
Our scroll has yabia as uttered for us, right?
yeah, right. So this is Isaac partially why, or to answer Sean's question about why I didn't want to have like multiple usages. I feel like it's intentional that we're contrasting two forms of like not fully formed, thought or speech. So like I wanted to like try to play around with that. So yeah, I'm actually going to go with spews is another good one. Yeah, spouts or spews I think is what I know. I think that's fiach I usually do, but Hirsch would say it's related. I'm going to say bubbles over or bubbles out evils. Okay, let's go with that. Okay, I think one of the English translations says that. Yeah, this says pour out, causes to bubble, ferments, pours forth, emits, belch forth. Okay, yeah. Right. Okay, fine. All right. So now we got some interesting things here. Okay, so the Tion says Yehege is Yachshov is so Yehege equals will think or plan or plot. Kamo Hegyon Libi, right? So he takes it davka not as speech, because maybe that's because it's in the mind. And la'anos is miloshin ani o teshuva. Okay, so that's the way we translate it. Sadigon says Leiv Hatzadik Hoge Ma Shabo Ya'ane Shabo Ya'ane. So the heart or the mind of the tzaddik thinks about what he can use to Ya'ane. Now I'm not translating Ya'ane for a reason. Ukitzavas Chazal, as Chazal command, Hivishakud Lilmod Ma Shetashiv L'Apikoros. You should be diligent to learn what to respond to an apikoros. So how's Sadigon translating Yehege la'anos? I mean, we don't know how he's translating Yehege, but la'anos is what?
Answer that to Hakiparos.
Yeah, but like, how do you translate answer with more
Rebut.
specificity? Say again?
Rebut.
Yeah, rebut, right? To rebut or to refute. Okay. So that seems to be, I mean, again, I'm relying on Kafka saying that this is the Aramaic, or the Arabic connotation here. Okay, now we get something weird, okay? And I will thank Alter ahead of time, okay? So I read this Targum on my own first. Liba de tzadika, the heart, I mean, I should really say heart/mind, because that's really, all right. Unless I'm feeling in a Tara Brach mood, I'll say heart mind. But I'm not in that mood. Liba de tzadika of the tzaddik. Okay, running behimanusa. How do you translate running behimanusa?
Isn't running like happy?
So running as an emotion is happy, but there's actually an action of rina, to sing out, right? Okay, so sings and then himanusa. Targum Okanlos people should know this. Shnai people.
Is it Muna?
Yeah,
Truth?
right. Truth, right? Okay, sings. Yeah. What's a better word for? I mean, emuna is related to truth, but I guess a more precise term.
Belief? Conviction?
Ne'eman.
Loyalty.
Yeah, like faithfulness or trustworthiness, right? V'idei Moshe emuna ad bohash. Ad bohash. Yeah, right. So they were firm, right? That's what it means. Or steadfast is the thing, right? So sings. I'll say steadfastness. Not quite articulate, but you got the alliteration there. Ufumahun derashie mabia bishta. But the mouth of the wicked spouts evil. Okay, right. All right, so hold that thought. Yeah.
There's a different question in our translation for la'anot.
Yeah.
We also say to call out.
To call out, like to respond.
Which I know like we have with Bikurim, like Anita Martha, like you're calling out. You're not answering anybody there. Like that's I know usage of.
That's interesting. What's the I always forget what the Targum on that is. He has a weird. I know there's a Targum quirk there.
This Targum was closer to that because this was not answering. I think it's
Yeah.
just singing out. Singing out sounds again like a calling out of your own, going forth and expressing something.
Right. Let me just see here. My mind is bringing up the Targum. Oops. Visasiv. Oh, so that is just you will respond, like lahashiv, right? Okay. So wait. So you said call out.
Call out, yeah.
to call out. Okay. For some reason, I feel like that's a much more secondary thing. Forgot to write the translations here this morning. I got so preoccupied with the altar. Moshe, can you check the art scroll? Because I don't have it. And then instead of Rav Hirsch, let's use whatever I do when I don't have Rav Hirsch, is I go to the Koran.
Oh, article.
Mishlei 1528. Oops, text. I go to the Koran or the JPS, whichever one they have. Proverbs 15.
The heart of a righteous person will consider what to answer, but the mouth of the wicked will stab you.
The heart, let me say it again. The heart of the righteous person will consider what to answer, but the what?
Mouth of the wicked.
Mouth of the wicked
Will spout evil.
Will spout evil. Okay. Okay. And then we've got here in the Koran, do we have Koran? How do you use Sparia? Is there a Koran? Yeah, Koran. The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. All right, fine. So this is Koran. Okay. So now check out altar. Okay. The righteous man's heart utters truth, but the mouth of the wicked bubbles with evils. Utters truth. The Masoretic text reads utters to answer, right? That's what we have. But the Septuagint, the Syriac, and the Targum all seem to reflect the Hebrew text that read emunim, truth, true things, trustworthiness, instead of la'anot. Okay, so for example, Septuagint, translated by Sir Lancelot Charles Lee Brenton, our favorite friend, or as they call him in yeshiva circles, the slach. They don't call him that, no. The hearts of the righteous meditate faithfulness. Okay, meditate faithfulness, but the mouth of the ungodly answers evil things. And then the Peshitta, which is the Syriac Torah, says liba de zadika rina renna b'hemanusa. So it's pretty much the same thing as the Targum. Okay, so this is an example, even though I don't like it when alter just alter stuff, where I mentioned that like the Masoretic text is not the only reliable edition, or not the only reliable like version of the original stuff, especially when you're outside of Chumash, when you're talking about Nach. And this is one where like it does seem to be that they were going off of a different version of the text. So I do think this is something to consider. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna actually keep all these things up here in case we need to make reference to them, but we will we'll move on and keep this down here. Okay. So questions. Well, let's just put our translation questions here. What are the denotations and connotations, because I think both are important, of Yehege and Yabia? Denotation is the dictionary literal definition, and connotation is the associations that surround it. So, for example, if you said that someone is slender, then that would imply like thin in a beautiful way, but you said scrawny, that would imply like, skinny in an unhealthy way. So like those are same denotation, but different connotations. Yeah. Yeah. Oren?
Well, two questions. First of all, what is the Tzadik and the Rasha saying specifically?
Yeah. Right. Hold on a second. I'm just going to add that. Yeah. What exactly are the Tzadik and Rasha saying? Yeah.
And second question, so this is maybe pushing towards a thought already, but not too much. Why is it that the Tzadik is purely reactive, but the Rasha is proactive?
That's very interesting. Okay, right.
Meaning either have them both be the same thing, one way or the other, or flip it. Why this orientation?
Okay, so I'm going to I like the question a lot. I'm just going to modify it just to make it more conservative, which is why is the Tzadik described as reactive? And then I'll say, is the Rasha, is that also implied for the Rasha? Or is the Rasha Davka not reactive? And if so, why the difference? Right. In other words, I think you could say Lev Tzadik Yehege Lanos, but the P Rasha Yabia Raos La'anos, meaning that they're both responding and that the La'anos is just giving the decision-making scenario. You see what I'm saying?
Well, and also you could also add, like, why isn't the Tzadik proactive like the Rasha?
Right. Okay, yeah. So why the difference? Why wouldn't the Tzaddik be proactive? Yeah, let's go Isaac, David, then Sean.
So, put it as Ariel would put it. This is obvious. The way that-
And as I would say, what the heck? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think is obvious?
The way I would actually express it is what's the chiddush? Because there's a lot of things about a lot of talking about Rishayim speaking evil, and I mean maybe the maybe it's more of a chiddush in the first half, but it seems like it does seem like this is a topic. It seems very related to a lot of other Mishlei.
Yeah, I don't think that this is a good place to start the question because I think this is the very fact that we had so much time spent on just getting the words means that I would not ask that question here. Over the years, I've come to sense that Ariel and I have different thresholds for what's obvious and what's not. To me, once you have any questions about the nuances and subtlety, like of the words, then I don't put it in the obvious camp. Whereas it seems like Ariel prioritizes the if the basic gist of it is obvious, then it's obvious, So like I think that's different. And I'm saying this because I know Ariel's going to listen to this, and this is the cost of not being here. I'm sure he has a good reason not to be here. The cost of not being here is that I get to articulate his thoughts. Yeah.
Can I defend the question?
Sure.
Or I'd say the methodology about asking the question here.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, like you mentioned about when there's like nuance in the translation.
Yeah.
I think sometimes if you don't ask the what's the chiddush question,
Yeah.
then you can end up jumping to an idea that doesn't capture all the nuance of the pasuk, but is a true idea, but isn't what's being expressed here.
Okay, I think that I've definitely seen that happen with beginner Mishlei groups. I just don't think that happens here in our group.
Okay.
Yeah. Related? Yeah.
Yeah. You could ask what's the chiddush of this pasuk specifically, because they're very similar pasukim. I think we actually had one with Yabia also.
Okay, so let's see. What's the chiddush? Yeah, I guess
I remember Yabia Ivelis.
Yeah.
To similar pasukim. Yeah. Was that see, here's the thing though. I'm gonna go ahead and say this before we check it out. Another reason I don't think that this is a common pasuk is that I think we usually talk about the chacham and the tzaddik, the chacham and the fool, or the navon and the fool. I think Tzadik and Rasha is a different story here, which is another reason why I don't think this is a chiddush. But let's see. I don't think it's a chiddush. I don't think that the question about the chiddush is warranted. Let me just check here, and then we'll go to David and Sean. Mishlei. It was in our parak. Oh yeah, first one. Lashon chachamim tetiv das ufiksim yabia iveles. Sorry, what did you say? That was the one. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah. All right. Yeah, David.
Following up on Oren's question, what's the scenario?
Yes.
So his question is this Tzadik responding specifically to the Rasha, or this is the general how they do things?
Okay, right. So what is the decision-making scenario here? And then I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, hold on. I'm going to actually move this question up here and then say, perhaps the la'anos is only there to convey the scenario, but is not specific to one side. Yeah. Sean.
Yeah. What are the opposites?
Yeah.
And particularly for me, how is lave contrasted to P?
Right. So Y lave versus P, Y Yabia versus Yehege. I know I did that. Oh no, I didn't. I'm doing it in the same order. Yehege, Y Raos versus not a Right, yeah. So that would be another reason why, or Hemanusa, right? That would probably be, yeah, versus in the Masoretic text, a nondescript response, seemingly nondescript response, right? Yeah, and then you could also ask, I don't think it's not a bad question, but this is not a necessary question. Why Tzadik singular versus Rashaim plural? And
Laden P. Oh,
yeah, you got that one. Yeah. Okay, let's go with Moshe Koppel.
Is this always true, or are there only
Right.
certain circumstances?
Under what circumstances is this true? Moshe Levin?
I have two questions. First, does Russia usually imply some sort of intelligence, or is Russia usually intelligent?
So in Mishlei, I'm convinced that Russia is a thinking person. So not like a fool.
Right. So then I guess if I understood Tzadik correctly, doesn't Tzadik not necessarily imply some sort of intelligence, or not primarily intelligence behind whatever they're doing, but specifically what Russia does? So
Okay. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Then how are we comparing them?
Okay, so there's a Rabbeinu Yonah I don't like to talk about. Okay, which is so for in my way of learning Mishlei, which I got from Rabbi Moskowitz, and which I have, I'm pretty certain that this is a viable method because I literally apply it to every pasuk about Tzadik and Rasha. Then Tzadik is a further development of Chacham. Okay, so and my go-to definition here is that that a Chacham, well, let's say a fool. Let me pull up the diagram. Hold on. This is going to be an Ashes Chayil presentation. So this is my Ashes Chayil Mishlei thing. Okay, so it looks confusing, but on the x-axis you have short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. On the y-axis you have linear view. So the Avil is stuck in short-term thinking and a very limited linear view. Okay, so he's just thinking he's either just thinking about A or the B is very, very, very like close. Like obviously the Avil does not, well, I guess maybe a young Avil might touch a stove, but like most Avils don't touch stoves. Okay. The Chacham is also in a linear view, but it's longer term. Okay. He still is thinking A causes B, but the Tzaddik is thinking systemically. And because so it's not just linear, is that A affects the entire system, which in turn has an effect on B, C, D, etc. And that systemic view is what allows him to think more long term than the Chacham. So that's my understanding of the relationship between the two. However, there is Rabbeinu Yonah, and I don't even remember where it is, and I've only seen it once in Rabbeinu Yonah, where he seems to imply that Chacham is a further development of Tzaddik. And to me, that throws a wrench in the whole thing. Again, it's not like I have to accept Rabbeinu Yonah, but like it just doesn't make sense to me based on the way Mishlei talks about these things. So the way we're gonna write down your question is what are the definitions of Tzadik and Rasha? Oops, sorry. In this context, and what level of thinking are we meant to ascribe to them? Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Who are they talking to?
Right.
Because while it seems like because it's not really a word for speaking used for the Tzadik, at the same time, the Russia doesn't sound like he has a specific person he's talking to.
Oh, so who are they talking to?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to actually put both questions here. Who are the Tzadik and Rasha talking to? Which actually is going to be, I'm actually going to just put that up here as part of the decision-making scenario. And then I'll put our question, which is, who is the audience of our pasuk? Yeah, Ezra.
What is the subject of the pasuk?
What is the subject of this pasuk? Is it the nature of what you say, the verbal or mental contents of the Tzadik and Rasha,
Or the process of thinking,
or their process of thinking? Okay, let's go Isaac, Sean, David. Yeah.
What are rows?
Yeah, what are rows? Yeah, I'm saying here. What are rows in this context? and then like I guess like and who are they Ra to? Yeah.
Mine was asked.
Okay.
Definition of slave.
Yeah. What does lave I'm gonna actually put that here. What do lave and I'm gonna put them in one question. P mean in this context? Actually, no, I'll make them two different questions. What does lave mean in this context? And then what does P mean in this context? And the reason why I'm putting this in a different question is like and is there a difference between P, Lashon, Safasayim, Garon? We've seen all these things. We had one shiur, was it this year, where we got a really good definition of all the parts of speech in Mishlei? We did, I think there were 5. It was good. I'll have to find that. Yeah, I really need at a certain point, then Sofer AI is going to be good enough for me to pay someone to create transcripts of all 614 of my Mishlei shiurim. This is 615, and then I could just search it and find stuff, and also write little summaries. But it keeps on getting there. But like we're not quite there yet. But it's what Sofer AI is this thing that some from guy is developing, which is it transcribes shiurim, and it's. Every time I've seen it demonstrated, like every update, it gets better and better. Like, so it's like, last I checked, it was like, I'd say it's like 60 to 70% accurate, but it's really hard. I mean, ChatGPT can differentiate between, Hebrew and English in the same sentence, but like, to create an AI that can do that reliably is really good. Yeah.
I think I remember 4 of the 5 parts of
yeah.
speech. Yeah, there's I think there's the throat, the tongue, the mouth, and lips.
Yeah, those are the 4 that I wrote here.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like there was one more, but yeah. And I also don't remember what the what do you call was the
voice, Cole.
I don't think that was on there. I think it was just like parts of the body when Mishlei associates speech with different parts of the body.
Be the util.
I think that's what they think the Garon is. Yeah. Yeah, but we had to think also about like why. Yeah, or whatever. I can see if I can find it. Okay. Other questions? Are we good? And that wasn't one of the questions. I mean, that's a question you should ask every day. But yeah, Isaac.
Oh, sorry. I have an idea.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead, Isaac.
Okay. So I think it's talking about actually I'll just no, I'm not clear on what subject this is, but I'm going to start with the second half, which is the part that I think is not a chiddush.
Okay.
That Russia. Actually, no, I'll start with the first half. When the Tzadik, the way that Tzadik talks is he'll his responses. First off, he'll be more responsive as opposed to it coming from him, and it comes from his lave, which is more internal and like.
Oh, guys, stop you. What do you mean coming from him?
So I'll contrast it with the Russia. What I mean is that he's I guess I'd say the way that he engages in talking with other people is much more focused on responding to what the other person is, let's say, saying or needing, as opposed to stemming from his own desires.
Okay. All right. That's why I was confused, because when you say it comes from him, to me sounds like the Russia, whereas based on the other person sounds like Lanos. So you are saying that
I think it doesn't come from him. That's what.
Oh, doesn't come from. That's why I was confused. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas the Russia, his mouth is just constantly bubbling up raos, which is I don't have a definition for what that is, but it's but I can tell you one thing: it's what the Russia says.
Yeah, not in response to the person he's talking with, but generated by his own, I'll just say for now, internal dynamics. Yeah. Or priorities. Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good way to what do you call it, to address Oren's question. Yeah. Okay, good. Is that it for now?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone on this track?
Just to comment on the second part.
Yeah.
The Seifa, that in contrast, like the Idalas who like bubbles up like stupidity, like
Yeah.
he would actually be giving kind of like coherent, and it sounds like it would be like good advice or a good response to what they might be asking for, but really it's like for his own agenda.
Okay,
or to
right.
lead them astray.
The Russia's bubblings will seem, articulate and intelligent, and maybe even seem relevant to the person he's talking to, but in reality, it comes from his his egocentric Russia-ness. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so I actually have something to add on based on
Yeah.
this. That the tzaddik is actually this is why it frames the tzaddik as la'anos, is because he's actually answering based on thinking about the other person, whereas the Russia is just he's not actually saying rose because like directly tied to what the other person needs, even if it might seem that way.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's what I understood the first time. What are you adding though?
Oh, I was just pointing out that it's that like and it's reflected in the lashon.
Okay. Yeah. You mean in the P? Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Different idea.
Yeah.
So this could be saying what the process that the tzaddik or rasha go through before they open up their mouth.
Okay. Yeah.
It's saying to someone, you see a tzaddik, his life is going well. You see a rasha, or whatever, you see a tzaddik, good, rasha, bad. This is what they each do before they speak. And I know we talked about what speech does and so forth, the power of speech. So I think it's just talking to someone who, if you want to work your way toward being a tzaddik, think through things before you speak, because that's what the tzaddik is doing. And if you want to not be a rasha, don't do what he's doing, which is just saying whatever comes out of his mouth.
Okay. Whereas a Russia will just say whatever comes out of his mouth. Now, this is where the question comes in,
Sure.
which is what's the chiddush? Okay, specifically because that idea sounds more like a fool versus navon or chacham idea. So yeah, I think that's the big question.
Okay, I'll think
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. Sean?
I have a different
Sure.
approach. So I actually want to focus on the difference between Rishayim and Tzadik and the plurality of it.
Yeah.
And so the scenario here is where you have a bunch of people, and I'll start with the Rishayim. The Rishayim just bubble out, and they have like this hive mentality where they're just working with each other to create this massive stew of rogues. Whereas the Tzadik, because he's acting as an individual and does not fall into being influenced by those around him, actually considers what is the scenario here, who are the people around me, what are they saying, and then what's the appropriate thing to say here, which completely changes the dynamics of what he's saying and how it's perceived.
Okay, so let me write that down, and then I have a response, which is the reason the second half is plural, and the first is singular, is that the Rishayim have a did you say, or did I just think like a hive mentality?
Yeah, I said hive.
Okay, you did. Okay, fine. I wasn't sure if I inserted that. Have a hive mentality and produce this bubbling of Raos, whereas the tzaddik is truly independent in his thinking and can speak and respond as an individual. So I think I have a methodological comment, and then I have a particular critique of the idea. So the methodological comment is, I think because I see this pattern all the time in the singular versus plural, then I'm reluctant to say that that's the focus of the idea and rather view it as a nuance. And I think it's a fine focus in general for the tzaddik, or sorry, for singular good versus plural bad. My critique of the idea is I don't think that Rashaim are going to have this joint mentality, because I think even though their thinking is similar, I do think that the Rasha also wants to be singular, because at the end of the day, he's just craving his own power and dominance. So to me, it's not a problem with the idea, but I'd be much more comfortable if this said fool, so then that would definitely be the case. But Rashaim, I just don't see Rashaim working that way, you know?
Okay, so maybe I could change it to Rashaim, like bubbling is like this inflammatory. So they build off each other in this inflammatory sense of they push each other further in their rishus.
Yeah.
Through the way in which they communicate.
All right. So I think here the word that I saw in the BDB, ferment, right?
Yeah.
Ferment evil together. Meaning even though each one is out for himself, they will build each other up and like contribute to each other's faults.
Yeah, I feel like they also have to one up each other. Right?
Yeah,
So
through
they,
their speech, right? Their speech and one up each other. Okay, and then I'm gonna just put my methodological critique. Methodological critique is that that since singular versus plural is a common Mishleic style, I'm reluctant to can't type today. Reluctant to make the main idea contingent on that nuance. Yeah, Isaac?
According to this idea, how do you explain the first half?
First half is that the tzaddik is himself engaging in thinking and responding as an individual. I think it follows kind of from what like the way David was taking it for the tzaddik. Yeah. Yeah, Ezra?
To respond to the question on David's
chiddush,
I think you could say that the chiddush is that with Rasha, they have like these. It's a lot easier to talk to someone with Yetzer Hara and give an answer that sounds good and quells whatever like their problem was. But by speaking to like, but not by solving the solution, but by like deflecting it to like a even bigger problem possibly.
Can you give me an example? I'm not sure what you're
like an
saying.
example would be should I go like I'm going to Seattle for a conference. They don't have a kosher option. Should I, or sorry, not Seattle, maybe like a place like they had no kosher options.
Seattle happens to have just started 2 new kosher restaurants, which is double the amount that we had. Yeah.
So like Topeka.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I need to think of some food option.
Yeah.
And I think the easy response would just be like, oh, like you don't have to worry about it. You're on the road. Like just eat what they give there. Like, it's pizza. Like what's the big deal? Like that's like an easy response that like can come straight from the mouth. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And like it's not individualized. And,
Okay.
like it sounds like almost like refreshing. Like okay, I got like this skama.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to actually give like a good answer, you have to like think about it and like find solutions.
Okay, so are you saying, this is what I'm hearing, but this is enough of a new idea that I'm not sure if this is a new approach or if this is what David was really saying, that when it says he's gonna be a ra'os, so I took that to mean, I guess I was still thinking in Isaac's framework, is that it's coming from his own ra'os. But what you're saying is that there is a common denominator. All people have a Yetzer Hara, and the Rasha is definitely operating in that realm. And so when he speaks, his words can cater to that lowest common denominator of the Yetzer Hara.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Kind of, or
that is what I'm saying.
Okay, all right.
Not for Isaac's answer, but for this one.
Yeah, right. So the Ra'os are referred to the fact that the Rasha speech, caters to the Yetzer Hara of both parties, or people in general. Yeah. Okay, right. So that is a good type of approach for David's. Yeah, I'm still not seeing a unified idea, but I think that's a good start. Yeah, David.
To address thing also on that.
Yeah.
I think that also works particularly well for because the Rasha is like operating quick and immediate, which the emotions are what's going to hit first, and the Rasha is now getting that person to enter into that way of thinking. Versus the Tzadik, when he starts thinking things through slowly, he's also now entering the other person into thinking things through deliberately. And I think the Rasha is going to be successful because he's getting the other person to think emotionally and quickly. While Tzadik is not doing that because he's also not there for his own good in a way that particularly to the Rasha is doing that for his other negative character types.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's another problem. Okay. That's not that's not the Rasha that I know in Mishlei. You know, I do think that the Rasha thinks very, very carefully. So I think it still sounds like you're talking about a fool.
Okay.
To me.
At least to clarify one particular
Yeah.
there, getting the other person to think emotionally, I think that's why what helps him be successful is that if the other person were to think things through fully, they could see what's wrong with what Rasha is doing.
Yeah.
But particularly the quick, fast-paced discussion, decision-making, if he's good at doing it, maybe he's practiced within this, but at the very least, he could catch other people and then ultimately get like his own good out of whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
Because he's forcing the other person.
Okay, that I would accept. Yeah. Let's go with Moshe 11 and Moshe Kabul.
Can I critique your critique?
Yeah.
So I think that when people have certain styles, they specifically are doing that because they want to make a point, right? The reason why certain styles appeal to us is because in some sort of psychological idea or emotion that we relate to, right? It very is often included in most literature that the reason why we like certain stories because you have these underdog heroes versus the mass army of big villains. But just because that's a style doesn't mean that there isn't a reason why we appeal to it. We do like it.
I think I agree with you, but I don't see what I don't. Sorry, hold on a second.
It sounds like you're.
Oh, wait, are you talking about Sean's idea?
David's idea.
David's idea.
I mean Isaac's idea.
Isaac's.
Sorry, the thing, the methodological critique of.
Oh, so that's Sean's idea. Okay, so we were talking about David's and I got confused.
Okay.
Moshe, are you talking about David's couple?
I mean,
You have a different idea? All right, fine. All right, so say what you said again, Moshe, now that I know what you're talking about.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I think that styles are based on certain ideas in the end, or because we can relate to them.
Yeah.
To whatever it means, and so that's what I was talking about. How like that idea, even though it could be a style of the underdog heroes versus like the mass army of villains.
Yeah.
There is still gonna be a reason why we relate.
Yeah. So let me critique your critique of my critique, which is that my critique is not that the style has no reason. My critique is that if the particular idea in Mishlei if the particular theory you're saying for a particular pasuk is treating that as the main thing, then I don't like that approach. Kind of like the same reason why I like. I agree with Sean's idea in general, and in fact, in the Rav in footnote 4, I think that's like the best expression of it, which is that like the tzaddik is the only person who's truly a individual, and like all other people are going to fall into like species man, in a way. So I like that idea, and I think that is an underlying idea why Mishlei usually has singular for tzaddikim and plural for Rishayim. I just don't know if that's. I don't like the fact that the idea is like contingent on that here. But I think the idea is salvageable. Like I don't think it's like a bad idea. Yeah, Moshe, couple.
Yeah, so I think that this pasuk is talking about not the way they think or the way that their thought process of reacting, but rather their I guess the way they reply and the way people perceive their replies. So the main difference being that at Tzaddik, his goal of replying is to affirm the truth of what his position is.
Yeah.
Or to speak accurately about what the topic is. So he's going to think carefully and answer thoughtfully. Whereas the Rishayim, he might be thoughtful about it and he might have good insights, but his goal isn't to necessarily give a truth of the situation. So he's going to try to pour out as much of his own narrative as possible. So it's going to require a lot more justification and a lot more spewing than thought.
All right, his own narrative driven by his own internal like values, priorities, etc. Yeah, I like that idea. I want to develop a little more. Let's just go Isaac and then Moshe, then we'll stop for today because I gotta go. Yeah, Isaac.
Just to talk about a practical application of David's idea.
Yeah.
I think maybe the advice is that it's talking about when you're responding to someone else, you could be either in the Tzaddik camp or the Rasha camp.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to give a response that's emotionally satisfying, but it's saying it's categorizing that as A, what a Rasha does, and B, that the response will be Ra'os.
Okay, when you respond, you can either be in the Tzadik camp or the Rasha camp.
Yeah.
And if your response caters to their Yetzer Hara, then that's in the Rasha camp. Whereas and those responses are Ra'os.
Yeah, whereas if you're responding thoughtfully, then that's the Tzaddik camp.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Moshe.
I was thinking similar to Moshe, and I'll give an example for the Rasha.
Yeah.
Haman, when Achashverosh asked him, "What should we do?" He said, he said to himself, "Right."
So
there, it's not he's having an emotional reaction, but rather based on his own worldview of himself. Then he expressed that Ra.
Yeah.
And he was talking to
okay, that's a great example. Russia worldview. Yeah. All right. I really like that example. Okay. All right. So we got a lot to think about for tomorrow. I'm curious to see what the meforshim are going to say. All right. See ya. Thanks. Thanks,
I was thinking about Hitler's speeches.
Oh, yeah.